Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Susan from So Peaceful and we're based in Hobart, Tasmania. Today in this session I'm going to work through the process that I use when I'd like to use some coloured pencils in my stitcheries, just to add a bit of extra colour to them. So we'll just move the camera now and then you'll be able to follow along. I've got this bunting panel which is a Natalie Bird design from the Birdhouse, and it's got 7 flags on it. The first one is a rabbit and the last one is the same rabbit. That one's repeated, but the rest of are sort of garden themes. We've got a teapot with flowers, pot plant, as I said, garden theme. And so what I thought I'd do when I make bunting out of this panel is use this fabric that I've got, because it's lovely spring colours. Reminds me of spring in the garden with the florals. So the first thing I do then, once I've decided the panel, is to choose the fabric, and I've got this little bundle of fat 8s there, and you can see that the colours are basically yellow and green and blue. There's not a lot of other colours in there. So what I've done then, once I've chosen the fabric, is gone through my embroidery floss box and chosen some colours. I'll just turn them around so you can see the selection there that I've chosen. So I've pulled colours really that you'll see in the fabric, so some greens, some blues, some yellows. If you've got some fabric that's got the selvage and it's got little dots on the side, you can use those to match your colours, but I've just done this one by looking at what's in it. And if we look at the fabric in a little bit more detail, you'll notice that some of the leaves there have got 2 or 3 different greens in them, just as those flowers have got 3 or 4 different yellows tones in them. So I've tried to pull a range of colours, and pale lemon there, that's in that one. Tried to pull out a range of colours of threads to go with the fabric. So that's my first 2 steps. Once I've chosen the panel, then I'm choosing the fabric and then embroidery threads. Once I've got those then, and I will continue to refer to them through this while I'm doing my colouring, is I pull out my coloured pencils. Now what I use are watercolour pencils, but they're absolutely nothing fancy, just pencils that I've picked up from discount stores, and they're so the first set that I've got here, you'll notice that 2 of those pencils are very short, and that's because they broke and continued to break when I tried to sharpen them. So that's probably an indication that they're not the best quality. However, I like them because they're nice and soft, and when you're doing your colouring with your pencils, the softer the pencil, the better the result is that you'll have, because you'll be able to blend it into the fabric. The other set I've got, that's 24 colours in that one. The other set that I've got is 36, and they're much stronger pencils, but they give me a variety of colours, and so that's why I like them too, because as I said, we're going to be matching colours to our embroidery threads, and so we'd like to blend some colours together. Sometimes that's what we'll have to do to find something that matches. So first of all then, you'll notice that I've got a sandpaper board, and I'm going to put my stitchery panel on there, just a single layer of it, so we'll fold the rest out of the row. Now the reason that I use the sandpaper board is because it holds your fabric nice and firmly. If I was to do the colouring on the table, things would slide around a bit. So what I'm going to do then is I'll start with some of these leaves, looking again at my threads and my greens for my leaves. I'll choose a pencil then that sort of matches most closely to the thread that I've got. And just using a circular motion, I'm going to fill in that first leaf there. And as I mentioned before, if we go back and have a look at that fabric, you will see that there are lots of different colours in those leaves. So don't be afraid to blend different colours together and use lights and darks to get different effects. Now, you might like to think with your picture, if you were to think of the sun shining on those leaves, there would be darker parts and there'll be lighter parts as well where the sun shines where it doesn't, making sure that you've filled it in as much as you would like, using some shadows, using some different colours. Now, as you colour, I'd like you to keep in mind that if your project is going to be washed, you will need to seal it. Once you've coloured it, you'll need to seal it with a textile medium. That means that it will, as I said, seal in the colour, but it'll also give a much brighter, shinier look to your colour. So keep that in mind as you are choosing your colours. It's a bit like, well, I mean, I guess it is the same as if we were to put water on top of a watercolour pencil. It gives it that brighter, shinier look. So just bear that in mind. Don't be afraid to use a scrap piece of fabric or even out here on the edge of your panel to practice what it will look like and make sure that you're going to actually get the colours that you're looking for. So I'm going to just leave that there, and I'll continue to colour away. And once I've got that finished, we'll come back and I'll show you how to apply the textile medium. Thanks. Okay, well, we've nearly finished up colouring in this first flag, and you'll see there I've had a bit of a challenge to match some browns to get that colour for the rabbit, and so I just put a few colours there together to see how it will work. We're just finishing off with that. I did add a little bit of orange to the mix so that it would bring out a bit of that colour, and yeah, just continuing on blending colours together. Some of those leaves down there, I've got 5 or 6 different greens that I've blended together, just layered one on top of the other to get a colour that I was happy with, that would go with the greens in the threads that I'd chosen to go in my stitching. Just with your pencils, as I mentioned, nothing fancy at all, just whatever I had. The softer the pencils you have, the better, because they will blend more easily, and you certainly don't need to have them sharp. I mean, they will be blunt, especially if you've got sandpaper underneath them. They will soon wear down the points, but it will help you to blend and get that circular movement going if you've not got sharp points. I mean, I've used a mixture of pencils, and the ones that are harder generally leave more strokes. Little tail there on our rabbit, whereas you know, if you're getting that circular movement, it will blend far more easily for you. I think he's pretty much done, and you can see there I've got a good colour if I'm going to do a rabbit there in that colour. It's a bit gingery, but just done there. Okay, so what we need to do now, as I've mentioned before, is to put a textile medium over the top. Now you'll need a textile medium if you're going to wash your project at any time, and if there's bunting it's likely to get dirty, or if you're stitching on something that would be like a quilt, it will need to get washed at some point. If you've used ink-based pencils, like there are Adorned Inktense pencils, they shouldn't wash out, but particularly using watercolour pencils or most coloured pencils, as soon as you wash it the colour will fade. So we use a textile medium. Now I'm going to take that off my sandpaper board because the textile medium acts like a glue, and you'll see some of my pencils come through on there, but it will just brush off with a towel. And what I'm going to put underneath that is a paper towel, because the textile medium acts a bit like a glue substance, and so it will stick to everything that you might get it onto, but it will dry and will come off easily enough. You know, if you get it on your fingers or something, it doesn't tend to stay around. So the other thing that you'll need is a paintbrush. The textile medium won't need very much of it, but you're just going to paint it on with your paintbrush, and just the tiniest amount. It certainly doesn't have to be caked on, and just be careful to brush it on only where you've coloured. It shouldn't spread outside the lines, but if you're careful to get it inside the lines, just like you've done with your colouring, it will be best. So just gently putting that on where you've coloured. Now once you've got that textile medium covered over all your colouring, I generally will leave that to dry overnight, because it does take a little while. As I said, it is sticky, and so it's damp for a little while it dries, and as long as you don't put too much on, it will dry pretty easily. Once that's dry, I would then put a Stitchery stabilizer on the back. So I don't deliberately iron or heat seal my colour, but by putting the Stitchery stabilizer on the back before I stitch, that does have the effect of sealing in everything. It also will help to dry that textile medium if there's any bits that are not quite dry. But you will notice as we're doing this that it is just making it a little bit more shiny where I've coloured. You'll be certainly be able to tell the difference between the flower that I've coloured and the ones that I haven't, particularly in the leaves there. So we'll I think that's sort of pretty much it really. Once you've, as I said, once you've got your Stitchery stabilizer on the back, whether you're using a Pellin or something thinner, you'll be able to do your stitching just like normal. So some of the stitches I might use will be a back stitch, the running stitch obviously around the sides here, stem stitch when I do the stems, maybe even the writing. So when I've got the bunting finished, I'll make sure I post a picture, and you can come back and have a look. If you've got any questions, just send me a message, and I hope that will help you not be too afraid to get started. Cheers. Bye.